refreshing furiously.
Go for it.
And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. So, hi. Today on our probably this is going to be our last Pride Month podcast, isn't it, for the Paradox
Yes, it
Hour?
is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about probably one of the more contentious topics, especially due to how it's mired in interpretation and subjectivity a lot of the time. Queerbaiting versus queer coding.
Not just that.
Now-
It's. There's also a matter of how much information we get.
Yeah.
It's also there's also, while I hate the argument of death of the author, there's also that to take into consideration is if the author meant one thing but ended up doing another thing, who do we believe? But anyway, before we get into that, it's our usual hosts, Mill, Jack, and Lore, and we are joined today by an unyielding, hideous abomination with a knife.
Look out! He's got a knife!
Ready to stab any of those bigots.
And as always, we are
yes.
the perfect people to talk about this, of course.
Clearly.
To be fair,
We kind of are. I think at this point, I've said it before, I'm just going to say it again. I obviously can't speak for groups I'm not part of, but I think you can very well come at this from a writer's perspective or just from a quote-unquote normal consumer's perspective. So
We
I'm
do
also-
have at least some degree of experience with media analysis, at the very
Yes.
least. Which is kind of key to discussing this stuff.
Not to mention,
Absolutely.
we have, because we are anime fans, we have a lot of experience with, at the very least, queerbaiting.
Oh,
oh, don't get me started. Ooh, don't
and
get me
queerbaiting
started.
as well, actually.
I mean, frankly,
We're gonna talk
frankly,
about Starlight.
I was
Rising.
gonna say
we're gonna get
our some of the opinions said about Starlight on here could get us stoned.
I have some
Oh,
words
I am
about
here.
Rising
I
Starlight.
will absolutely pull out my gun if I need it.
Yeah.
That said, it's not that we're completely detached from the community as well.
Yeah. We do have...
Hello, I'm the queer person, I think. The only queer
We also
person.
have several friends who are queer.
You and the duck has questions about itself that it may... Look, all I'm saying is you can count it as 1.5 people on this podcast, if not outright 2.
That's 50%. I like that percentage.
More or less, yeah, this is a decent split.
But why don't we start off by defining what queerbaiting and queer coding are?
Okay.
There's a very lovely Tumblr post, which, I'm a bit leery about Tumblr posts, but there's still a decent amount of good stuff there. Would someone like to link it in the chat?
Give me a moment.
But the basic of it is that queerbaiting is, in a nutshell, intentionally marketing basically queer subtext or queer behaviors or to start interest in a project and attract like an LGBT fan base to your project without any plans of follow through on the queer subtext.
Cough, cough.
Or-
Fantastic beasts and where to find them.
Mm-hmm.
Cough, cough.
Whereas,
You know what? I'll let you guys go ahead first. I don't want to start ranting just yet.
queer coding, on the other
We'll
hand,
get to
is
it.
when someone is writing queer character. Someone on the writing team of a project is wanting to genuinely write a queer character or a queer romance subplot, but for whatever reason they aren't allowed to make it explicit, be it executive meddling or network standards. So they are forced to tone it down to just level of subtext text.
Because remember, kids, corporations are still bigoted no matter how many pride flags they put up.
Yep.
No.
So, for a good example, Korosami from Legend of Korra, that is queer coding, 100%. They wanted to make it a canonical couple, but they were not allowed to make it explicitly romantic
until
in the course
later
of
on.
until like follow-up comics and Word of God posts.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of funny to me that that's the example in this Tumblr post, because I never did not read that as coding. I always, just because it's not like it's from out of nowhere. It starts pretty early in season 3, I think, and kind of
it's pretty clear. It's just like
yeah.
a lot of people were like, no, they're not really doing this. This is just teasing, right? This is just teasing.
Okay, I can't see
There's
it, guys.
nothing's
I
actually
think
going
they're
to come
just
of
like
it,
friends.
right?
Yeah.
And then something actually came of it, and everyone was like, oh
They're
shit,
just
that's
very
awesome.
good friends.
Very good friends, yeah.
I mean,
while we
and-
are at this
and-
post, I would like to say one thing, because I am German and also studied linguistics and literature for like 5 years. The post makes this weird third category of subtext, which is just a bad word for it, because
Yeah,
all of the things we said are
overlaps with
subtext
narrative.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
so
the
that is
post,
a thing
where
that
the post
exists.
wants to go is like unintentional subtext, which
Yes,
is
accidental
wonky at best.
queer coding,
Yeah.
which is it's a very difficult thing to classify. So
Yeah,
we're not going
I
to really
think-
get too deep
Yeah, I
into
think
it.
we'll talk about it maybe a little bit, just because we will inevitably go there, I assume. But yeah, just
that
because
stuff
because the post is what we're going off, I wanted to address that just there C subtext is not really a very good or accurate way of describing what they mean.
so like accidental homoerotic subtext is stuff like Sherlock Holmes and Watson living together, or the infamous Star Trek interactions with Spock and Kirk on Pon Farr and all that jazz.
And
That's
just in
accidental.
general.
Just in general, but that bit in particular.
Now,
just wanted to
that
say
said, there's the additional layer of, I don't even know what to call this, but I will say one name and you will know exactly what I mean. Rowling.
I mean, again, I think that's queerbaiting.
Yep.
It is baiting,
exactly.
yes, but it's much more actively malicious than the standard.
I mean, the whole thing with Dumbledore and Grindelwald in Fantastic Beasts, that's 100% queer bait. Like, they say, oh, these two are gay, they're lovers, and all that, and they do absolutely nothing to show it in the movies proper.
I just want to say, before we move on, the night of that reveal was probably one of the funnest nights I've ever had, because so many fucking hilarious tweets that on a sleep-deprived high I could not stop laughing at. I swear, I laughed for a good 10 minutes on my bed, probably confusing the fuck out of my housemates at the idea of Hagrid buying feet pics. I posted so many of those I posted so many of those tweets in our fucking Discord. So many of them.
He's been living in a hut for 80 years. Cut the man some slack.
Don't kink shame.
Right? He's lonely.
50 years. 50 years. It wasn't 80 years.
Regardless.
Oh, it's all the same difference at that point.
Regardless.
I'm not kink shaming you. I'm just saying it was a fucking hilarious image, because you know Hagrid, and he wouldn't be able to hide it. He would just talk about it and make everyone uncomfortable.
No.
Oh god, now I want someone to do the accent.
No, I live in Scotland. I can't do a Scottish accent. They'll kill me. Because it will be terrible.
Mill can.
I'm German. I can't do any English accents.
I mean, I could do it. Nope. I could attempt a Scottish accent, but there's a chance it would morph into an Irish accent.
Further. But yeah, so this is one of those things that there's a lot of uneven ground here, in the sense that it's not a clear-cut thing.
Yeah.
It's not clear cut.
For example, Rowling, yes, that's
about as clear cut as it comes, frankly.
Queerbaiting.
Yeah.
But, and I'm gonna say it, something like a lot of the cute girls doing cute things anime. I'm not naming any names about.
I will name names.
Surrealist giraffe-based stage productions. I'm not naming any names.
No, but I think the contentious issue there is not really one of is the show overall queerbaiting, queer coded, whatever. The contentious issue for me would more be the degrees, because going to maybe a less contentious example, in K-On!
K-On's a good
relationship between Ritsu and Mio is completely differently, just from the show, how the show characterizes it, than say between Yui and Asusa. It's just different things. And in the fandom, both of them get basically the same treatment.
And I think it is important to note that when we are mentioning examples, unless it is like so blatantly obvious like it was with Rowling, it is our interpretation, because unless there's
it's hard to parse author intent on a lot of these matters.
Unless
you have word of God, and even when you have word of God, that's sometimes not the most reliable thing.
Yeah.
For example,
obviously
here's a bit of a contentious one, which I wish Aerith was on for, but
unfortunately she wasn't able to make it. But
Stormlight Sanderson. My man's got some problems with representation.
So Aerith did talk about this in our LGBTQIA plus tropes podcast. And from what I remember of that one, it does seem to lean into queer baiting, honestly.
Yes, because Sanderson has gone on record saying, "Oh yeah, Knights Radiant would have a very high proportion of trans individuals." There's one out of several hundred in text, and that one is kind of just a one-off mention.
Which is unfortunate, because he himself has stated a lot of potential for representation.
It's kind of just like, and this is the problem where author bias is a very dangerous thing in this field, because of the fact that a lot of it is unconscious. So even when the author may have good intentions, if they're not able to recognize their unconscious biases, then there's some problems.
And that's kind of why I'm of the mind that largely, of course, one should not generalize, and I try not to, but largely death of the author and representation don't really work together.
I don't think death of the author works in general a lot of the time, but I agree.
The author kind of ignores paratext.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go into my entire death of the author rant, just because that's not the place. But again, I think
we will be having a death of the author podcast at some point, so feel free to rant there all you want.
But especially in regards to representation, just because of what you just said, if the author can't or won't or whatever, or maybe the editor is at fault, whatever, if the work can't move past the author's biases, however they may be very positive biases, but they're still biases, then it's really hard to divorce that from the author, because there's so much unconscious stuff the author puts in there. That's very hard to say, yes, I read this in there, but the author didn't put it here. That's kind of also the thing with a lot of shonen anime, really, because you basically can't find a shonen anime where the main guy and the main bad guy or whatever aren't shipped in some way, shape, or form. But I guarantee you, in most cases, the author really didn't put it there. It's just something people see.
Yeah. But
there's also the case where
queerbaiting and queer coding, unfortunately, it's more of an issue of, at least in some cases, just the fandom being ship happy.
Yeah,
look,
I mean, that's
fans be horny.
Yeah.
Right?
But the thing is, I don't mind the fans being thirsty, right? All the fan fiction about, I don't know, Yu-Gi fucking Kaiba or whatever. I don't care. Do that, but don't act like the work in any way, or don't act like the author in any way puts stuff in his work to support that, because that's
because you ship it and it doesn't happen in canon doesn't mean that you were baited.
And that's probably why I have difficulties with going back to the Tumblr post, with the Tumblr post using the term subtext for that, because subtext is not in all cases, but subtext can be something that is put into a work very intentionally, and something the author didn't put into the work is inherently different from something the author put there.
Yes, and to briefly also go back to sorry.
This is further, just to continue on the example of shonen anime, this is further complicated by the fact that despite a lack of author intent, oftentimes there is some very heavy homoerotic subtext between the main guy and the rival and or best friend in the shonen anime.
Yes, absolutely.
And that muddies the waters further.
Part of the reason, too, is that a lot of fandom has a hard time separating strong platonic bonds from romantic bonds, which is in the nature of fandom, unfortunately. But like the line between close friendship and romance is often a blurry one, both in reality and in fiction.
And I'm not gonna lie, like this is part of the problem, because there's this. If I were to say it has bad intentions, I would always say this fetishization of close friendships because I ship it, so it has to be more than just friendship, but sometimes it's just that.
I mean, and a lot of the times it's kind of just very young people who don't have any experience in that regard, or older people who don't have any experience in that regard, and they're just kind of just like, it's they can't tell the difference.
Yeah, and I'm not saying anyone's wrong for thinking that. Again, write all the fan fiction you like, but be aware of what you're doing when you do it. That's all I'm saying.
Anyways, briefly going back to the whole death of the author thing, like, to use Rowling as an example, because at this point she's a good punching bag, let's be real.
Yes.
It's very hard to uncouple her extremely transphobic beliefs from her more recent works, one of which has a straight up example of a quote unquote cross-dressing serial killer who is basically just a coded transgender person who commits murders because the said individual is jealous of women being born women, which is all kinds of yikes and is extremely difficult to separate from Rowling's beliefs.
Yeah, it's definitely a very extreme but very good example of how you can't really remove the author from this. But because even if you read this without any knowledge of who Rowling is, you would probably go out and go like, yeah, this is problematic in many ways. And by that point, it doesn't really matter it doesn't matter if somewhere in the work it says no, he isn't trans, because coupled with her beliefs, like, it's obviously what he represents, even if he isn't. And yeah, that's obviously a problem.
It's also I'll bring up a bit of a more recent example that is kind of complicated and it's further complicated by localization issues and the stupidity of the English language.
You're welcome.
Yamato from One Piece.
Ah, yes, an extremely
is a more complicated case regarding their pronouns. So here's the thing: the official translation has been using he/him, which I totally respect that. It's a more complicated issue because in the SBS, Oda, the author, specifically uses gender-neutral pronouns.
Yeah.
For referring to Yamato, and
all of
Yamato's
the
case.
Japanese versions use gender-neutral pronouns for Yamato.
Yes.
In general, really, but Yamato in particular is only given gender-neutral pronouns in the original Japanese.
Which is probably, I don't think anyone will disagree that that's probably truest to the author's intent. And the reason, so here's the thing. Okay, does anyone want to explain Yamato's specific circumstances, or should I?
I'll do it. So Yamato is an unusual case in that he's introduced as secondhand when Kaido asks some of his subordinates to find his son, who is running around the island they're on. He introduces himself as Kaido's son, but Yamato is was born female and is introduced in a text box as Kaido's daughter. And part of the reason Yamato identifies as male is because Yamato is emulating a male individual from the past. So it's somewhat unclear if Yamato is.
It's not even that. It's even more complicated than that, because Yamato does not identify specifically as male. Yamato identifies specifically as an individual who is male.
Is male. Yeah.
Like, by which I mean Yamato does not identify as Yamato.
Yamato identifies as Odin.
Who?
So we don't even know how Yamato think of themselves.
Yes.
So
and that's the thing. Also, I need to get. I'm not sure where I can get the sauce on this, but I actually don't know what word in the original Japanese because remember, Japanese has a lot of gender neutral terms, so I'm wondering if it was actually an introduction of Kaido's son/daughter, or if it was just Kaido's child.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to look into that.
What we do know is also that Yamato also gets angry when Luffy calls him Yama-O or Yamagai, but it's unclear if that's just because Yamato hates being nicknamed or if Yamato isn't happy with being referred to as male. And it's very complicated.
Which just complicates things even further.
We do have a good example of trans representation in that same arc of One Piece in Kiku. So
honestly, I will come right out here and say it. While there are problems with the Okama in One Piece, it is kind of like a very positive representation of an existing and valid subculture.
Yeah,
right.
A lot of the Okama stuff is fair for its day, like with Bon Clay and their introduction into the narrative, and the later Newkama who are introduced. But it's basically a whole culture of basically genderqueer individuals or gender fluid individuals who
they are basically they're all gender fluid, and their aesthetic can seem pretty yikes, but it's kind of a pretty well-established aesthetic. I don't I apologize if this is not the correct terminology. The drag queen aesthetic.
No, I'm pretty sure drag queen is still fine to use as a term.
So that is an aesthetic and culture and way of life that is totally fine and valid, and at no point is it presented as a bad thing in One Piece proper, except by Sanji, and we don't like Sanji anyway.
I mean, Sanji is also portrayed as just being an asshole in that case.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically everyone else is like, himself. Oh, cool. Yeah, everyone else is like, oh, cool, okay. Moving on, let's go punch some dragons.
Yeah, no one else really comments negatively on it. It's just Sanji, so it's probably just a character fault on Sanji's part.
But yeah, Kiku is just a trans woman.
Yeah.
And is loved and accepted by all of her friends and family.
Yeah, it's really nice. But yeah, that's an example of neither queerbaiting nor queer coding.
That's just an example where I don't think any of us have any idea what's going on.
Representation, yeah.
Yamato is a weird one, but Kiku and the Okamas are explicit representation.
That's why I'm so hesitant to commit to any specific hard definitions with Yamato is because Oda is very clear on all of the other characters, right? Like, Oda always refers to Kiku with female pronouns.
Yes.
Which is why I'm more hesitant, because he explicitly refers to Yamato with gender-neutral pronouns.
It's entirely possible that Yamato might be some sort of genderqueer. We don't know. What we do know for certain is that the only thing we know for certain with regard to Yamato is that they were born female and identify as Odin in the present day. That is all we know for certain.
And also appears to not necessarily approve of being referred to as explicitly male outside of the context of being Odin.
Yes. It's a very tricky situation. We don't know how to parse it.
Yes, and that's why I brought it up, because that's kind of it's kind of that One Piece really runs the gamut, right?
Yeah.
It very much has that. It's another look. I'm never gonna stop gushing about Oda. One Piece has problems, but it really does have a lot of a very diverse spectrum of problems, if you can put it that way.
Maybe while we're on the point of incredibly hard to define edge cases, what the fuck does one do with Najimi from Komi-san?
Oh god.
Yeah.
That seems like a more clear-cut case of non-binary to me.
Yeah, Najimi seems to me to either be just non-binary, a troll, or both.
Yeah.
I can speak from experience. Those two things are not mutually exclusive, and often
I lean towards both, honestly.
Yes, the answer
seems to me like a non-binary individual who gets their kicks out of trolling people about their gender.
Probably. I mean, probably the big issues with Najimi all come from fan translations, because for the longest time in the early chapters, no one really knew what to do pronoun-wise, because they didn't. And I mean, I can get that because the translators probably weren't sure. Okay, is this a bit? Is this a joke? Is this a thing that's gonna come up at all? And so it was treated very differently from chapter to chapter.
I'm gonna say one thing that's kind of interesting here is the biggest problem with fan translations, and this, I'm taking a risk saying this because this could very well get me killed if we had any viewers. A lot of scanlation groups are just made of dicks who are bigoted.
Yeah.
Not entirely inaccurate.
No, because like I've been in their Discord servers.
Yeah.
Another issue is that, unlike official translations, fan translations do not have a direct connection to the source material.
There's no one looking at them with a critical eye from the point of, okay, what does the author actually do here, and how do we translate that? Yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, I assume the fan translators got some feedback because they got better about the Najimi thing, because probably at some point people were like, okay, guys, you have to at least decide what you want to do with that.
Yeah.
And be consistent in that. And that seems to have happened. Also, the official version's released, and probably by this point they're just going by what they do. But in general, the fan translations were probably the biggest problem there.
If we're going to talk about another, that's actually one of the less common forms of representation is non-binary rep, because that's kind of just been acknowledged a lot later, because it's kind of harder for most people to wrap their heads around.
I've said something recently in one of our talks about going for works that are older with the whole spectrum of queer representation, and this still obviously goes for non-binary as well. For many, many things, especially what I'm going to call the finer details of the whole queer spectrum, not that many years ago, you can probably go back even 5 years ago, the knowledge and the awareness in society just wasn't there. And even if that had been
even when the knowledge was there, sometimes the willingness wasn't there.
And even if something had been referenced or some attempted representation had been made, that would probably not have felt like that type of representation. Like, for example, if someone had done genderqueer representation just, again, 5, maybe 10 years ago, it probably would not have come off as genderqueer representation. It probably would have been folded into either gay or lesbian representation, just because those things in people's minds, those things were tied way more into each other. And because just, again, people just weren't that aware of the whole spectrum of how these things interact or don't interact with each other. And that is worth noticing, especially talking about older things.
Yes, and another problem that you run into in the modern day with stuff like non-binary representation especially is there's an uncomfortable amount of fetishization going on.
I mean, yeah, that's generally a problem.
As an example of one of the more yikes series to exist in recent memory that has a decent example of non-binary representation, but at the same time is just very yikes as a series. Made in Abyss.
The one with the body horror children, yes.
Body horror children who often get naked and are put in turtle shell bondage as a punishment, yes.
That's a whole different issue.
Well, no, because it features a non-binary character who is very explicitly stated to be non-binary, but also there's that character is kind of like fetishized a lot, which is just
unfortunate.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of fetishization that goes around, not just non-binary, but queer people in general. What with all the joy.
There's also
yeah.
There's also one other example I'd like to point out because it's something I'll never fail to bash. In the case of Bort's dad's author's third series,
which is
I am of course referring
Samurai
to
8, right?
Samurai 8, yes. That had a non-binary character in it.
Yeah, and they were promptly sidelined, like, the chapter after they were introduced.
Yup! And, like, so what's interesting is that this is something that happens quite often. That the non-binary individual in question had actually probably the best chemistry in the series with the main character, promptly sidelined for generic female love interest.
And
which,
let's be real, Kishimoto didn't know how to write women.
Yeah, I mean, a thing I keep seeing with any, especially in shonen anime, with basically, or manga, with basically any group that isn't teenage boys, is essentially there's this old, I think it was Akira Toriyama, correct me if I'm wrong, who at some point just said, yeah, I don't really, like, he knows he can't write women. And basically his choice isn't, I'm going to learn how to write women, his choice is just to not do it.
I think that
applies.
I believe Kishimoto, not Kishimoto, I don't believe that was Toriyama. I believe Toriyama said something along the lines of, I don't know how to write romance, so I just skip over it.
So he's just not going to do it.
No, Toriyama also said that he doesn't know how to write romance, so he doesn't like to actually write it all that much. But Oda also does not like writing romance.
Oda, the difference is though, Oda's actually good at it when he tries.
Yeah, it's just he rarely does try, which makes all the instances where he does do it all the more special.
Yeah, no, what Oda said is that he'd be bad at drawing women, not writing them. He's pretty good at writing women.
I do think that in the past few years he has gotten a bit better about it, but he still does have issues.
But like,
but back to my point. I think the issue is many authors maybe kind of fall in love with this idea of I'm going to put someone of insert group here into my story, and then just kind of get cold feet. Like, okay, I don't feel comfortable writing this, and the easiest solution, especially given how the industry works, the easiest solution if you don't know how to write something as a mangaka is to just not do it, because you probably don't really have the time to learn and do research and stuff when you're working on a series.
It's like,
and I'm not saying that's good. Like, I'm not saying that's a good thing to do. It's just I get where that's coming from, and I think that's why stuff like you just mentioned, where characters just kind of get introduced and then sidelined, happens because they write that in there. Maybe because they want to, maybe because they don't think of the implications, maybe because the editor said, hey, maybe do this. I don't know, and I don't care. But then they have this character they just don't feel comfortable writing, and the easiest solution again for them is to probably just say, yeah, just gonna put this here and not touch it if I don't have to.
So behold, audience, I have introduced character of X minority. They will be introduced, have an interesting story for 3 chapters, and then never be mentioned again.
Which is like dangerously close to queerbaiting, honestly.
So just to bring the conversation back to Yamato for a second, I have spent the last 10 minutes, I guess, since we were talking about that, finding a raw scan of the chapter where Yamato's revealed as Kaido's child, and the Japanese does appear to use daughter.
For the actual text box that introduces Yamato?
For the actual text box, it says, and this is based on Google Translate, but I believe it says Kaido no Musume. And Musume, I'm fairly sure, is girl child.
Now, yes, Musume is daughter. Now, what I'm curious about is if in the panels where they're referring to Kaido's son, they use the word Musko instead.
I believe,
based on
I remember specifically,
based on the
before Yamato.
Based on the chapter secrets from Library of Ohara, they use Bochan, which is a polite term.
Young master, yes.
Translatable as something like young master.
Which is generally, because Ojo-chan would be the, would be the female equivalent. So it's kind of, so even the manga flip-flops.
Yeah.
So it is important to note. Well, no. To be fair, it should be noted that usually, Botchan is used in the text box, in the dialogue boxes, whereas Musume is used in the text box, and generally the text box is seen as a more
accurate, yes.
Objective, not accurate, but rather more third-person omniscient as opposed to third-person limited.
That makes sense. Yeah. Honestly, I don't feel comfortable trying to define a gender for Yamato
I don't think
until at least this arc is over.
Define Yamato until there's more.
I'm just gonna keep using non-binary.
Yes, that
pronouns.
was my decision as well.
Gender-neutral pronouns.
Gender-neutral pronouns. Sorry.
I feel like gender-neutral pronouns is the safest bet in a lot of cases until stated.
Oh, absolutely. Until you actually know the pronouns of somebody either in media or in real life. Stick to gender neutral. It's just like,
as Mill has learned the hard way from too many games of anime, boy or girl.
Fucking Akira from Kemono Jihen got me hard. I was certain Akira was. I was certain Akira was a fucking girl right up until he got angry that Carbonet assumed the same.
But like...
Phrasing. Anyways, back to the topic at hand.
Oh my.
Wow. You have to really reach for that one. You have to reach around.
Look.
Yes, that was intentional.
This was inevitable. Yes, go on. Sorry. Yes, go.
Back to the topic at hand. Like, there are plenty of... It's a lot harder to find, like, actual, like, definite examples of queerbaiting that we're familiar with in media, just because, like, again, a lot of it comes down to intent, and we don't always know the intent of the authors and or the producers and or the executives, and or the marketing team. So sometimes you have examples like Supernatural. Let's open that can of worms.
Oh no! Oh no!
Is Supernatural queerbaiting or not?
The answer is yes.
I mean, the thing is, queerbaiting and queer coding can kind of coexist in a way, because if I off the top of my head can't think of an example where this happened. It's just how I can construct this happening. If, say, the author says, and these two people are gay, and the executives say, I don't like that, but don't put that in there. But also the executives say, but wait, if we put subtext in there, we can market this.
Yeah.
And I mean that's kind of the difference. Queerbaiting has this predatory element of going, well, we don't really care if or how we're going to follow through with this. What we really care about is marketing this. And you can do that with a show that is explicitly queer coded. Like, that's not, the two things aren't as separated from another as one would like discussing them, because that would make it much easier.
And that's another kind of confusing aspect of this is, as we've stated, sometimes things can go bad because of just author incompetence. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Writing is hard.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think everyone in this call knows that firsthand. Writing is hard, and as a consequence of that, sometimes even the best of intentions can come off as yikes.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of the issue. Like, of course, intent matters, but intent starts mattering a lot less if you don't put in the work to actually follow through on your intent. You can have the best intentions if you don't work on actually making it good, and then it's kind of shitty. And I don't mean good in terms of good quality writing. That's an argument I've had with people, and I don't really like I like representation if it's done well, because it's usually just a backdoor argument for I don't like representation. But I mean done well in terms of, if you put a group into your book or story or whatever, and you are not a member of this group, then at least talk to someone. Like, at least
do the research. Have at least a few first-hand sources.
Yeah.
At least, like, know some people.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it takes. And you can definitely clearly see when that is a caution not taken.
Now,
we should probably go. Oh,
go ahead. No, go ahead. No, I was just trying to fill a dead air.
We should probably go into works that have queer coding, since we talked about queerbaiting a bunch. Now, I know Lord is probably going to agree with me, and I don't know how Fuzzy's going to react, but Starlight is actually kind of queer coding more than queerbaiting.
Absolutely. I think it depends on who of the, we're going to stay with the main 9 because we say the mobile game doesn't exist. That's fine, but it kind of depends on who you're looking at.
If you're looking at the main trio of Karen, Mahiru, and Hikari, that's pretty clear coding. Like,
absolutely.
I'm pretty sure Mahiru is canonically, explicitly lesbian.
Yes, she is the one where it's more or less confirmed in universe. I mean, that's another thing with queer coding. What does confirmed in universe mean? Because if your confirmation means, well, they hold hands all the time and kiss all the time, then you're not going to get that in most anime, honestly. Yeah. even for straight relationships.
I will say one thing though is Starlight. I will acknowledge has coding, but I also believe Starlight could fall into the category where both exist simultaneously.
And with that, I'll wholeheartedly agree. That's definitely true.
That is a fair argument.
Because here's the thing: I'm not, and I agree with you, Lord. There's basically no series in which the characters are in a relationship and do relationship things. Like, I've even read manga where the characters are explicitly in a relationship but have literally done nothing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like that obviously
like,
needs
both
to be
in universe and but no, what I would like define as confirmed in universe is just, you know, characters talking about it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't need any sort of public displays of affection, just acknowledging it. Like outright, as opposed to through constant little dances of subtext.
I mean, by that point you've moved
there's
past
also
queer
the
coding,
fact
but because by that point you're not in subtext anymore. By that point you're just in text, and if you do text, you don't need to code anything.
There's also the fact that like a good 90-95% of all romantic plot lines in all of media ever are focused much more on the chase than the actual relationship that takes place afterwards. So,
and also most romantic
it's not limited to just queer relationships that this happens to. It's
absolutely
just
not
all relationships.
I mean, honestly, oh God, people might kill me for this if anyone hears this, but the Naruto Hinata relationship kind of just happens.
Yeah,
they have like 2 scenes together in original Naruto, then they have like 3 more scenes in Shippuden, and by the time board rolls around, they're just married. Like, okay.
Kishimoto
just kind of happens.
I mean, at least it's not the other one.
I mean, let's not get into that series now. We've talked about this the other day.
We have Naruto at a later date.
We have a roasted Naruto planned at some point.
Yeah. But no. What I'm saying is, if the threshold is they say we are in a relationship, then you're no longer in the realm of coding.
I wouldn't. No, I'm not even saying that. Not saying the threshold of saying they're in a relationship, but rather the threshold of acknowledging that a relationship is a possibility. Right? Because like even that threshold is not reached most of the time.
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't. I don't think I agree with that being the threshold, but I understand what you mean.
I mean, a lot.
Like, if we want to talk about Starlight, I can just go through the main relationships and tell you what I think about them, and we can discuss them, or we cannot. I think I'm the only one here who really cares about Starlight.
I mean, I can see of the.
I mean, I want to talk.
There's like 3. There's like 2 relationships that are pretty clearly coded. One that
would agree with that.
Incredibly toxic, and another one that is slightly coded, just not to the same degree as the other 2. I know. Why don't you elaborate which one's which?
Yes, I will. The 2 that are most overtly relationships with strong romantic feelings attached would be, for me, Kaoruko and Futaba, who essentially live together.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's also a toxic relationship to a degree.
It's incredibly toxic, but it is very clearly treated as a relationship. And going,
which is an entirely separate can of worms that we should probably talk about.
I mean, toxicity in implied relationships is a big issue. We can talk about that, but just gonna go through them.
Yeah.
Also, just while talking about that one, actually leaving the anime in favor of the mobile game for a second, there was an event where Futaba let someone else ride on her motorcycle. And everyone said verbatim, "You cheated on Kodako." Like that's the language
yeah,
they use in the official translation.
That's a lot more clear cut than
and by that point you're like, okay, yeah, this is
this is the point at which you realize, oh, okay, fine.
Yeah, like this is important to them. It has meaning to them. The meaning is clearly explained in the anime. So yeah, that's definitely a very toxic one, but one that is, in my eyes, clearly a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
The other one would be Banana and Juna, who basically can't really work without each other. They always rely on each other. They do everything together. It's written like someone would write a romantic relationship, just it's not written as a romantic relationship.
It's somewhat codependent, yes.
Yeah. I can seeing that one as just a very close friendship. I don't think I'd agree with that, but I can see that. But that would be the other one that is very, very obviously romantic to me. The main
two main relationships are less clear cut, but also have heavy romantic coding.
Yes, they are a bit more difficult just because, mostly because of the people involved, literally. Because while Mahiru is obviously very attracted to Karen and somewhat to a degree also maybe to Hikari, we don't know that. The relationship between the two mains is kind of difficult just because they aren't really, in a way, they aren't romantic people, and I don't mean they are aromantic. They're
idiots.
Yeah, they are idiots, but also they just define their relationship by very different standards because they have. I mean, that's the I'm fight sexual.
It's the shonen rival problem.
Yeah, definitely. They have this. That's obviously a very close relationship, and basically everything they do is romantic. They keep holding hands, which in Japanese media is pretty overt. But it's kind of, that's another one where I can see people going, maybe not, but I would say it is. So that's the main three. And funnily enough, the only one where I'd say it may actually not be there is the most popular one, the Claudine and Maya one, because they don't really have much screen time. That is elaborated in basically every bit of promotional material and material beyond the anime because it's the most popular one. But in the anime, that's the one where I'd say someone might not see that. Someone might just...
Kuro and Maya?
Yeah, because someone might actually just see that as a rivalry. Just because they don't have screen time that isn't them being rivals.
I mean, there is a trope for just people having sexual tension that's also somewhat volatile.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not seeing the romantic relationship there. I ship them hard, obviously. But that's the one in the anime where I would say, okay, they don't. That is the one that's not elaborated upon to the point the others are.
Yeah.
And that would be my takes on the main characters, on the main 9.
I mean, I'm just going to say that I usually ignore the coding just to poke the Starlight fans because I find it amusing.
Yes, same here.
Yes.
But especially Tofu's reactions, let's be honest.
I mean, yeah, of course.
But especially, I mean,
do it as much if he didn't react like that.
But based on the extra material, like the mobile games, it does feel more like a coding situation than baiting. It does feel like
it is a Bushiroad title, and they have their unfortunate history, or not.
Yeah.
Not unfortunate history, but just they have their thing they are doing with all of their properties, and Starlight falls very much into that.
Yeah.
Speaking of series with a lot of romantic subtext between lady leads that has supplemental material, Symphogear is also a very strong example of queer coding.
Yes, it almost leaves the realm of coding in the last episode.
Yeah, so though I will say it did not start out that way.
Are you kidding me?
No,
they literally shared a bed from episode 1.
No, I mean that it was like much less clear if there was any sort of predatory baiting aspect until later seasons.
Yeah, seasons. Well, honestly, season 2 actually has Miku outright singing that she's in love with.
Yeah, and by
Hibiki.
season 2, they also introduced the other ones. So by then, it's kind of
Kirika and Shirabe.
Yeah.
But clearly the love song was meant in a friendship way rather than a romantic way, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, a good chunk of the series finale hinges on Hibiki realizing that she loves Miku in that way.
Yeah. And that again, that comes down to how do you define that's a relationship? Because I've talked to people who said, well, no, they don't do anything on screen. They don't even really talk about it on screen except for the last 2 sentences. So this is baity. This isn't there. This is only there because they want to market it that way. But that is very reductive to me because again, from episode 1, they share dorm rooms, they share a bed, they basically live together like a couple.
They live in the same room and they share a bed when they have a bunk bed.
They have a bunk bed and they share
bed.
Like they are obviously very close, like good friends are, because it saves on heating if you share body warmth.
Clearly they're just good friends.
Yes. No, of course, Symphogear is one of those that is very obviously queer-coded because they obviously wanted to do something, or maybe they didn't, I don't know, but they obviously planned on these characters having a certain type of relationship, and the material wasn't really the place to explore that, so they did what they could to get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the supplementary material is somehow even more explicit with regard to that relationship.
Like, I mean, there was this event card from the mobile game,
the card from the mobile game with Hibiki basically proposing.
Yes. No, she's just on her knees and giving Miku a ring like friends do.
Clearly.
Yeah, have you never heard of friendship rings?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's like 100%. There is no subtext.
Yes, absolutely. No,
it's just text at this point.
At this point, it's really it leaves the realm of coding. But it obviously it's worth mentioning it in this discussion because it's one of the titles that's brought up often as baity, in my opinion, by uninformed people or ill-informed people.
No, anytime someone calls Symphogear bait, I get angry because it is.
Yes, not. I understand that.
It's very clearly
like. The only situation in which I would call Symphogear bait is when I want to make fun of Tofu.
Tofu's really into Symphogear.
Yeah, you can only do that to make fun of Jack, actually.
Mm.
Well, thank you for giving me that particular weapon.
Well, Jack's gonna murder you, not me.
I have my weapons.
In all seriousness, though, it is Symphogear is probably one of the single most positive examples of like good intentional coding.
Yes. I mean, but you can't really talk about Symphogear without talking about Nanoha.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was just Symphogear 10 years ago.
Basically.
Nanoha and Fate adopted a child, so Hibiko and Miku could run.
Yeah, it's somehow even less subtle.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Here's the thing, and this is something we all have to remember. Magical girls be thirsty for magical girls.
Mm.
Yeah, no, like, the majority of magical girl series either have canonical or coded lesbian relationships.
I mean, like, even the OG
they are
codifier.
Sailor Moon had a canonical lesbian relationship.
And I will
what
never
are you
not
talking
find that
about?
funny.
They're cousins who also kiss.
Cousins who are very close to each other and share a bed and make out occasionally.
That will never be funny to me. How someone thought, we don't want that gay shit, just make him cousins, and probably like 5 minutes later realized, oh god, no.
Yeah, done.
I just put gay incest in my anime.
I was gonna say, like, you somehow made it worse.
Yeah, like for real.
It's hilarious.
That is to this day one of the funniest tries of overseas censorship because
it's just
so
such a
stupid.
spectacular failure of censorship.
Yeah,
like
it's
they not only failed to make it less gay, they somehow made it incestuous on top of the gay subtext.
yeah, exactly. They didn't get rid of what they wanted to get rid of and added a whole other layer of shouldn't be here. Like,
Yeah,
I remember
in Japan, guys.
I remember seeing that shit when it aired, and I was like 8 years old, and I was like, well, those two are weirdly close for cousins.
Mm-hmm. But going back to Magical Girl series in general, as I said, like, it's really hard to uncouple like sapphic chemistry from the magical girl genre because it's almost always there, either as subtext or as straight up.
It's basically the equivalent of the shonen protag being shipped with the bad guy. It's just kind of
with
how
the rival or the best friends of Lancer.
Yeah, it's just kind of how the genre works. But
somehow it's even more explicit.
Okay,
but where Nanoha deserves special mention is the later seasons because they literally adopt the child together.
Yeah.
But guys, they're just being very close friends who decide to take care of a child together. It's not weird at all.
That reminds me of that one time I saw a post about two women from 1800s Ireland who decided they would never get married to men, lived together, and adopted a dog that they named Sappho.
Yeah.
And the historian said, you know what? They're just very good friends.
Yeah, they're just trailblazers for friendship, man.
Now, I was gonna. Oh, right. Y'all want to know what's one of the most hilarious and also kind of interesting looks at this topic in media is how familiar are you guys with Chinese and Korean web novels and webtoons?
Not particularly.
Very. Only know the ones that got made into animes that I didn't. Most of them were quite bad.
And there was the one about the gay cat boy.
Which one was that?
The one in which an artist cohabitated with a cat boy and they were very obviously gay.
I don't remember that one.
It may be because you were unaware that it was Chinese as well. Well, now, look, I phrased that poorly. Anyway, so that's a very, very interesting little window because there's a lot, like, the censorship for the Chinese ones, the censorship is even stronger than you can possibly imagine. And in the Korean ones, there's a good deal of... shall we say,
homophobia?
Fetishization?
Both.
Both of these things?
In the same series.
Fetishized homophobia. Wow.
Well, of course.
But yeah, so... But someone
got ketchup in my peanut butter.
One of the things that probably to this day is the most obvious one to me is a manhwa called Blue Phoenix, which is a series, very standard shonen setup, and it features a very, very effeminate Lancer character who very rapidly befriends the main character. And they do, in fact, live together and they do everything together, do undying declarations of friendship, shall we say. The funniest thing about that series is that about 20 chapters in, the main character gets a girlfriend who exists just to be there.
Hey, sometimes your protagonist has to have a heavy case of the not gays, just to be sure.
And this is very common. but at the same time, there's a lot of cases where, especially in the otome genre, the male leads have just so much subtext with each other and yet are ostensibly totally straight guys. It's just
I mean, that's just the shonen thing all over again. Yugi is supposedly kind of has a thing for
I would say that the difference is that it's very obviously the author knows what they're doing and are teasing intentionally. Right? It's unlike in shonen, it is extremely intentional. If you tell me it's not intentional, I will not believe you.
Okay.
So that's
that is in fact a huge difference.
Yes, where it's explicitly, sometimes it's the characters in question like are even like they're married or in relationships as camouflage.
So they have beards.
Yes, good old beards.
So yeah, it's one of those things where it just reminds you of the sharp difference in the cultural interpretation as well. Also, this is slightly off topic, but this is a sincere question. What is the last series you remember where two characters of compatible orientation were in fact just friends with no sort of subtext or shipping at all?
I mean, off the top of my head, Jake and Rosa from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very good example, but like, it's very rare.
Yes.
Which confuses the issue when it comes to stuff like coding even further.
I mean, yes, but I will say, especially with regards to shipping, and like that's a whole can of worms. Because
I mean, shipping in universe, not out of
universe. No, but I get that. But the thing is, once people start shipping out of universe, it kind of start seeing it in universe, even if you don't follow that particular ship. Yeah, it just starts becoming part of the work, even if you don't intend to, and even if the author, they might not know about it. Because again, going to Yu-Gi-Oh! Just I don't know why I keep going to Yu-Gi-Oh! Like Yu-Gi ostensibly has a thing for Taya, but like the closest relationships he has are with Joey, with Kaiba, like all of that is just there. And nothing in the show suggests that any of these relationships are anything other than what they are presented at face value in the show, but just through the fact that fandom is shipping these characters, like when you see it, you can't really not see it.
Yeah. To be fair, Yugi does have a stronger relationship with both Kaiba and Joey than he does with Taya. Taya's
that's what I mean.
There for 90% of the show.
She's there because he has a case of the not gays.
Yeah, you often have it where there's just a female love interest present in a story just to quote unquote prove that a male character isn't gay.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Unfortunately, that doesn't always work because bisexuality exists.
On that subject,
no, it doesn't.
going back to the punching bag of J.K. Rowling. I didn't know. Well, I probably knew this and just erased it from my mind. But in the horrific work of fiction that is The Cursed Child,
oh God,
that reads genuinely, having read the summary and having read hundreds and thousands, probably more like millions of words of Harry Potter fan fiction, Cursed Child reads more like horrific fan fiction than it does any sort of like canonical events in the universe.
Doesn't that have like Voldemort, who canonically does not understand love or sexual attraction, just straight up having him have banged Bellatrix in the backstory?
Yes, it does.
The fuck?
Mm-hmm. But that's not what the focus is here, because there is apparently a very subtextual relationship between Harry's second son Albus. Why the fuck would you name your son that? And Scorpius Malfoy.
I mean, his full name is Albus Severus, so it's several layers of why.
You're basically
Rowling is a shit writer.
I mean, yes. To the point where they apparently exchange numerous heartfelt confessions about how much they mean to each other.
Wait, between Albus and who?
Scorpius Malfoy, Draco's son.
No.
Of course. Oh my god, that's terrible.
Rowling clearly caught on to all the people who shipped their fathers.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then in the second to last scene of the work, Scorpius asks out Albus's cousin Rose.
Why though?
Because Rowling is a bigot.
And also not very good at her job.
I know, no, a terrible writer as well, but definitely a bigot. I mean,
not wrong.
I mean, we can do this now or we can do this later, but we've been very much talking about queerbaiting and queer coding in terms of romantic relationships. We should also talk about stuff like transbaiting and transcoding.
Oh, yeah. Of course, yes.
Which again, we will be mentioning Rowling there.
The issue is there's fewer examples of that compared to just regular lesbian queerbaiting or queer coding.
There are, and most of them are bad. But again, I like taking shots at Rowling.
All right, go nuts, man.
I mean, the character Tonks, the fact that she is able to change pretty much all we are basically told she is able to change every facet of her. Yeah, she's a shapeshifter. And yet she always stays in a female form.
I mean, good thing she finds a man, right?
Exactly. And the man
let's also talk real quick about how Lupin and Sirius definitely aren't gay for each other.
I was about to mention that because not only do you have, Tonks finding a man, you've got Lupin, who is probably the most theorized to be gay character in the fucking series. Suddenly
werewolves are kind of one of the oldest gay analogies out there.
Well, certainly Rowling wrote it as a fucking allegory to HIV, which that's not great.
That's some yikes right there.
Yeah, no.
That's real yikes, but
yeah, bad.
But
there's just somehow still people who think the Harry Potter books are good, though.
Well, it's because they're the only books they've ever read.
Yeah.
That have more than 50 pages.
And I mean, also nostalgia is heavy. Nostalgia is a strong force. Don't underestimate nostalgia.
I'm lucky. I never got into Harry Potter. I preferred others.
I did in a big way when I was younger, but I kind of got out before, I got out by book 5 or something.
Oh no, I read all of them as they once I was old enough, I read all of them as they came out.
I read all of them, but
I was a big fan of Harry Potter. Then I discovered fan fiction and thought, oh, this is great. I get to experience these characters, more. And then I started to realize how bad they were.
Was your first fanfic My Immortal?
No, it was not. I can't remember exactly what my first one, but the first one I definitively remember reading was actually a future fic focused on Albus, who at that point I thought that was a great name. Yeah. I was
it is a great name if you never want to blend in anywhere.
I was like a young teenager at that point, so please don't blame me.
No, we won't blame you.
Look, Mill, I'm the last person who will blame you because you've seen my fanfiction page.
I have.
Oh boy.
It's very fun. I don't remember what it's called anymore, but...
Good.
I could probably...
Just
it might be in our messages somewhere, I can't remember.
Oh no!
Look, I'm not gonna go searching for it, but
I was like 10 years old. Okay.
No, I don't blame you at all. I mean, the first thing I ever wrote was Codex Alera fanfic, basically.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But for real, like I'm not gonna even today I'm not gonna blame people who like Harry Potter, like what you like. I don't care. I just encourage you to explore the media you like, and if you still like it, good for you. If you start going, maybe this is kind of iffy, also good for you. Like just live your truth, man.
Now that's an entirely different debate that we will get into
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
a podcast. But
that episode's probably going to be more than 2 hours. I'm going to say now.
Which one? The roast of J.K. Rowling?
The roast of Harry Potter, yeah. It's going to specifically be on Harry Potter rather than J.K. Rowling herself.
I mean,
true.
She hasn't really done anything. I mean, she has written these terrible other books, but she hasn't really done anything that matters. Like after Harry Potter, like everything she does circles back to Harry Potter.
Yeah, because that's the only thing she's good at. She's not even that good at it anymore.
Exactly. So if you talk about her, you kind of have to talk about Potter. But anyway, not what we're here for today.
No. About a month though. About a month, 31st of July, we're going to be talking about this. But yeah, I mean, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head. I'm going to search through the fucking homophobia index on TV tropes to see if I can find something. But
we can talk about one of the more general things that is a very interesting topic with Japanese media in particular is the idea of cross-dressers in Japanese media.
Yes.
So that's a very thorny topic because it should be noted that is, to a certain extent, a subculture that does exist outside of trans individuals as well. But a lot of the times when it's presented in media, it is essentially just either trans bait or trans coding.
Yes.
And it's kind of just like, it's one of those things that it shows up in other media as well, but it's just one of those things where on a conceptual level it already has problems.
Yeah.
And that's just usually just exacerbated when it comes to the execution.
Yeah, because like it even starts, as you said, on the conceptual levels. It already starts out bad just because like 99% of the time it's the butt of the joke. And haha, that guy wears dresses is not a particularly funny joke. And also you have just this undertone of I mean, it's generally a thing in Japanese media, this undertone of every form of deviancy from the norm is bad.
I mean, sometimes it's not undertone. Sometimes it's just...
I mean, yeah, sometimes it's just explicitly said this is not normal and therefore bad, of course. But I think the whole cross-dresser thing is especially obvious just because it's so prevalent. Like, especially like in the 90s or early 2000s, you couldn't find a fucking anime that didn't have at least one cross-dresser in it.
And it's just... I will say the most problematic part of this is, in fact, that it's often accepted as a joke, even in a more progressive context.
Yeah. It should be noted also that male to female cross-dressing is treated vastly differently from female to male cross-dressing.
Which is reflective of how... So, there is like a disturbing amount of... like the way female to male trans individuals are treated in media is already disturbing.
Yes.
In a lot of cases. Where it's that said, we're straying a bit from the baiting versus coding topic. So anyone got any examples off the top of your head for trans baiting versus trans coding?
Well, for coding, there are several characters in like Najimi was an example of a transcoded character who is probably non-binary, but we don't know for certain because it's not explicitly laid out. Partially because Najimi is a troll and probably wouldn't give a straight answer anyways.
I do want.
There's also another similar character is Opera for Irumukun, who is also non-binary coded.
I mean, guys, we can talk about Ranma.
Go for it.
Oh gosh, should we talk about Ranma?
I mean, can I before we do that, can I just do a short thing? So a show this season called Pretty Boy Detectives Club has the main character Mayumi dress as a boy to be, well, it's very strange. I don't think she needed to dress as a boy to be a part of the club, but it at the start it very much seemed like it would be a more of a transcoded situation, but the longer it's gone on, I'm starting to think it leans more towards trans baiting than anything else. In that, again, while Mayumi says in I think the second episode that she has the heart of a boy or something like that and dresses as a boy, she still very much considers herself female and refers to herself like that, and so do the other characters, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But again, it's a difficult situation to really parse out. But that's the example that I think of. Another example potentially is Oren with
oh yes,
what's her name? I can't remember. Is she
Haruhi?
Haruhi, that's it. I knew it was one of those names. I was about to say Toru, honestly, but yes, Haruhi. The fact that she dresses as a boy, again, it could be seen as baiting. I don't know. I haven't watched enough of it to really say for sure. But yeah, you guys go ahead and discuss Ranma, which I'm sure will be wonderful and progressive, and we'll love it.
Oh, well, poor Rumiko Takahashi and her unfortunately outdated material.
Yeah, I mean that's the first thing that should be noted. Ranma is just terribly outdated. It's like from the 90s.
It's like 40 years old, isn't it?
Yeah, like it's an old series, and in everything we say about Ranma, that should be noted. It's not something that was made in a time when any of this shit was even regularly discussed in media. But I want to bring up an actually somewhat positive example from Ranma. Which yes.
Go ahead. I mean, we're not going to stop you.
Which is going to be Konatsu is their name. The person essentially working for Ukyo.
Would you like to elaborate for people who are maybe not as familiar with Ranma?
Yes. Konatsu, and I'm speaking in the terms of Ranma from 80, 90 something, not in terms I would use today. Konatsu is in story essentially cross-dressing. Was born as a man, is referred to by other people as with male pronouns and everything, but essentially sees themselves as a woman.
Mm.
And while, I mean, it's that kind of series, while she obviously gets shit for that, she never like there's never this moment of breaking out of that to be happy. Quite the opposite. By the end of the series, she essentially just lives with Ukyo as their kind of partner, maybe romantically. We don't really know that because it's not a series that deigns to inform anyone of anything by the end. Um, but there's like in many series, especially from that time, when you have these quote unquote cross-dresser characters, you have this moment by the end where they just kind of break out of it.
Mm.
And Konatsu just kind of stays who she is and remains happy as that and never really stops identifying as female and just living that. And for a series made when Ranma was made, that is, I'm going to say, kind of a positive approach.
I think so, though. I wonder how much of it was even intended to be that way.
Mm. And
right?
that is something that you do have to wonder about these, older series, is how much of it was intentional and how much of it was just a complete accident. I mean,
especially with something like Ranma, which is very, very fraught with issues of identity and so yeah, I'm gonna say it was intentional to a point, but it probably wasn't intentional to the point I was making just now. Because just of how the series is structured and how the character development works. Like Ranma's entire thing is he, and I'm going to be referring to Ranma as he because he never, even when he's in his female form, he never stops referring to himself as male.
Mm-hmm.
And that's his whole thing. He has this female form, and it's literally a curse. It's not like you could say heavy-handed metaphor, but I don't even think it's metaphor. It's literally a curse. It's meant to be taken literally. It's not some question of gender identity or anything. It's just the gimmick of the story. It's meant, as I said, it's meant to be taken literally. And his whole issue is that he has to reconcile the fact that he sees himself as a very quote unquote manly man. He's like a very good martial artist. He just sees himself as very masculine, and obviously that clashes with this female form he has. And Konatsu's quite obviously meant to tap into that and just be the opposite of that, like a man who is also like Konatsu is like a ninja or something, like a very good fighter, but rejects manliness, if you will, because she obviously doesn't want to be a man. She was raised as a woman and wants to be that. And that's the point Takahashi's making. She's not making any points about gender identity or anything because that was probably not even on her mind when she made Ranma.
Yeah. So I had an example that I forgot during my talking about Pretty Boy Detectives, but I have remembered something that I believe will be interesting to discuss on this topic. Sarazanmai.
Oh dear.
That one was fun.
Because that's a... Let's be real, that's a very, very gay anime.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, there is
Even setting aside the Otter Cops, the main trio is...
I mean, I was just about to mention that the Otter Cops are canonically in a relationship.
Yeah.
And
no matter how much otter fucking they do.
No, like, it's even a plot point that one of them cannot tell the other that he loves him.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, he will die.
So that's obviously an example of queer text. But as Jack was about to mention, the relationship between the main trio is a lot more subtext.
Well, no. In the cases of Glasses Boy, it is.
I mean, Glasses Boy, yes, but overall, like at the end of it, when spoilers for Sarazanmai, I know it's a 2-year-old anime, but I should still say it anyway because.
Oh my God, Sarazanmai is 2 years old.
Yes.
Yep.
So.
Oh no! Oh,
spring 2019, I believe it was.
Yep.
Yeah, spring 2019.
Time is a lie.
Yeah. 2 years ago, we were talking about this on FMK.
We've been podcasting for 2 years.
Basically, yeah, because we started in winter 2019.
Oh dear.
No, it was spring 2019 that we started. Spring 2019.
Yep.
That was the first year first season we did it. But yeah. So spoilers. When Toya gets out of prison for killing a dude, and I've been to the tunnel where he did it in Asakusa. Very fun place. Yes, that was a brag. I'm sorry, but.
Because of the murder, or was there a different reason?
Oh, because of the murder. I mean, me and my friends were staying, we were near Asakusa anyway, and we happened to just go walking there. But once I realized how many how accurately Sarazanmai had depicted Asakusa, I was like, no, we got to visit all of these places. So I got my picture taken in both with the golden Kappa statue and the bit by the bridge where they would play football.
Did the Kappa statue not come to life and do butt stuff to you?
No, unfortunately. Well, I didn't break it, is the issue.
There's your problem.
I did do a horribly executed Sarazanmai pose because I am horrifically uncoordinated and significantly larger than most of those skinny anime boys.
So what you're just telling me is that there was no Kappa butt stuff.
No, not for me anyway.
Visited.
That's a relief.
I did give some money to the Golden Kappa, so keeping that going. But yeah, I would argue that their relationship once Toei got out of prison is, well, we didn't get much of a sign of it, but I'd argue it was very queer coded. It was not. It was not one of Friends. Let's be real.
Now here's the question. Here's the real question. Did Glasses Boy get NTR'd?
No, I do actually think it was they are a polyamorous trio.
That would not surprise me.
In which Kazuki is the filling of the sandwich.
No, that tracks.
That tracks.
I like how you didn't even try to argue with that.
I mean, it doesn't seem inaccurate.
I'm still trying to remember what the fucking example I was gonna bring up was, and I can't remember it. It was a really good example, I thought. Fuck.
Ododeku?
No. I mean, give me a second, because there was a tier list of relationships that was posted in one of our channels. See if I can find it. That was very good, I felt, for relationships.
That does bring us to an interesting thing, though. Is more recent media properties. What's a more recent media property that you've seen, Lore?
In terms of coding?
Yeah.
Hard to say, because I think not that coding is going away, but
it's easy. I will say it is easier for
things that actually deal with queer relationship are just going to actually do that now. So
that's the thing. There's a lot more just straight up text nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I'm very happy about. I will never complain about more text.
I mean, in a negative point, like one of the most bad and pandering examples of queer baiting would be a few years back Comic Girls, which was just terrible.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. I remember. I still
had
remember
one episode where
rant.
Yeah, where just two people two girls said, "Yeah, we're gonna go out on a date," and like halfway through their date, they just said, "Oh, this isn't a date. We're just friends." Like it was
that goes
literally
beyond
terrible.
queer baiting, and that's just outright.
That's just poking the LGBTQ community.
Honestly, if Comic Girls had been a better show, I would have said it was kind of brilliant because it would have been a brilliant take on queer baiting.
Yeah.
But Comic Girls was not a better show. So
again, see the Dead Sloth rant by Scott Kaisernecko Frericks.
Yes.
No, Dead Sloth was by HBI, I believe.
Oh, it was Ben?
I think it was, yeah.
It was on
TFS's FMK, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Dead Sloth rant is just absolutely hilarious, though.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, that's definitely an example of queer baiting, and I honestly think both queer baiting and queer coding are starting to, I mean, slowly, as I said, this shit will not go away for a good amount of time, but starting to take a backseat, just because, again, if you want to address that stuff, you can just address it now.
There are
and at
some
the same
shows,
time,
there are some shows where it started off as coding and evolved into actual text.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the recent She-Ra reboots.
Yes. And another, just to finish my thought, and even with queer baiting, it's, I feel it doesn't really take the shape of, well, maybe these characters are gay anymore. Today they'll just throw a gay character in there, like an overtly gay character, and market that.
Yeah.
And that is, strictly speaking, not queer baiting. I mean, that character will never have an on-screen relationship, or they will have one on-screen relationship and never more because they don't want to elaborate on that.
Which is getting to something that we should have included in this topic, tokenism.
Yes, the token gay. Or as a lot of chick flicks have nowadays, the gay best friend.
Gay best friend.
Who is just there for comic relief and or representation and nothing else.
That was a whole fucking movie genre in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. Listen, honey, I know you like him, but you got to glamour up.
Yeah, exactly that.
And all sorts of other dumb cliched lines like that.
But yeah, I honestly...
Surprisingly Valley Girl accent, Jack.
I mean, he's from California. It makes sense.
No, okay.
I know. One of my friends in high school had just like such a ridiculously strong Valley Girl accent. It's like
unironically.
I picked it up through. Unironically, she was a very nice girl, but at the same time, she had a very strong Valley Girl accent, and it was hard not to have it rub off a little bit.
Phrasing.
That's a bit of a reach around now. Callbacks, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
But no, as I said, I think, and that's why I can't really think of shows with overt queer baiting or I mean, the last thing I saw that had good queer coding was probably Symphogear.
Oh,
or She-Ra,
I've remembered it.
Again,
I remembered the example. Sorry, I'm sorry, but I've remembered the example.
Go ahead. We were just filling air until you remembered.
Fucking Attack on Titan. Ymir and Historia. That shit is bait.
I will never not be mad about that.
That shit is bait.
And also bury your gaze.
Fucking dirty. He did both of them so fucking dirty.
Because literally, while they are definitely close, there is no sense of a romantic relationship until Ymir is already fucking dead. And it only comes in a letter that Ymir wrote to Historia. I would say spoilers for Attack on Titan, but I don't give a shit about Attack on Titan. I know, that's a lie. I give all the shits about Attack on Titan, but in a negative sense. And to make things even worse, they then just stick Historia on a fucking bench and then fucking stick a child in her.
Yeah, no, that infuriated me.
So, no, Attack on Titan is
some bullshit.
Attack on Titan is fucking bait. No question about it. And fucking Crunchyroll had the fucking goal to put Ymir and Historia on best ship list for their awards one year.
I'm pretty sure it was in the same season that had Ymir go off to die.
It
Woohoo.
fucking was. That was also a season with a bunch of really fucking good gay relationships that fucking missed out because of it.
Well, you see, it's dramatic and therefore good.
No, it's not. It's really not.
I don't know. I haven't read it.
Popular and therefore good.
Yes.
Real...
No.
Yeah.
No.
Anyways.
So yeah, so that was my contribution. That's that I vividly remembered. I have also found the list for ships. This goes from 0 to 7. 0, no reason, no problem, never interacted. Might never stopped you shipping before. Won't stop you now. 1, stood next to each other. They've been in proximity to each other before. That's just about all you have to go on. 2, have met. They interact in the series, but are at most neutral or even hostile. 3, friendship. They've met. They get along. Probably friends. 4, I want to believe. For each shipper seeing a romantic gesture, another fan can easily see it as platonic. 5, obvious hints. 6, confession. 7, literally married.
I think I remember seeing this.
Yes, it was. As I said, it was in our Discord, and we did rank a bunch of ships on that. Because I remembered it because Fuzzy mentioned Totodeku. Totodeku is a 4. Totodeku is look.
You think you can repost that so that we can see it?
There's also, apparently, according to Mill, there is subtext in the novels.
There is subtext for Momojiro in the light novels, for sure. And considering...
I would not be surprised if one or both of them was either lesbian or bisexual.
Yeah, so considering that Horikoshi has said that the light novels are for stuff that he wanted to include but didn't have the time to in the actual series, that makes me believe that certainly Momojiro is more of a coded than a baiting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there's a lot of even in the series proper, Kaminari spends a lot of time fondling Tailboy's tail.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Also, I'm pretty sure Kirishima is at least bi.
Oh, Kirishima and Bakugo is a fucking relationship, whether the fucking bigots like it or not. Did you fucking see the first movie?
I saw the first movie.
Yeah, no, that shit was gay as fuck. No doubts about it.
Picked out clothes. Kirishima picked out clothes for Bakugo.
Yeah.
Matching clothes, might I add.
Mm-hmm.
I should get back into My Hero. I kind of dropped off after season 3, I think.
Mm.
My Hero's pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. It just kind of didn't find the time to watch it.
Season 5 is getting close to one of my favorite arcs in the series.
The one that
the current manga has actually started addressing societal problems.
What?
Spoilers. Let's not get into that.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's not. This is not the
recent examples of coding/baiting. Yeah. We also have here's one from fall of last year, Assault Lily Bouquet. That one I am not entirely sure if that was intended as baiting or coding, because it kind of was on a weird tread line where
I don't think I watched that.
Where I'm pretty sure at least a couple of the main cast had were pretty clearly attracted to other girls. And I'm pretty sure that was just strong coding, if not outright just text.
Yeah, so recent example for me, Skate the Infinity aired literally last season. Three relationships between male characters that could very easily be read as romantic relationships. Adam and what was his name? His skater name was Snake. I can't remember his real name. I didn't pay that much attention to him, honestly.
Snake.
That I'm not sure how I feel about their relationship, but it is romantically coded for sure. Then there's Joe and Cherry Blossom. The way they interact basically screams they are an old married couple. And then, of course,
there's the main characters.
The main two characters, Reki and Longa. Longa outright says, in a conversation with his mother believes they are talking about his crush. Longa even uses ski to describe Reki, or describe his feelings for Reki. And while they don't get together at the end, this is by the same director as Free. She knows what she's doing.
Mm-hmm. So, would you say that's coding or baits?
I would classify Free as pretty baity.
Free is bait. I'm talking about skates.
I'm not sure. Again, things like this are a very difficult one because we just don't know about the. We don't know.
Speaking of anime from last season, we were talking about transcoding. Wonder Egg.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost not coding anymore.
Well, no, I'm talking about Momoe, who is very trans-coded. Who may or may not be trans, but there's heavy coding to suggest that she is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I meant. Like, that almost moves past coding into text.
Yeah.
It's not quite text because it isn't explicitly spelled out.
It's not.
But it is the barest razor-thin margin away from.
I mean, they have her wear a trans flag-colored jacket, and I believe her the edges of her tank top were also trans flag-colored. All they really needed to do beyond that is to basically say it outright.
Yeah, no. Which is why I say it's on the bare razor thin.
Yeah, but in terms of skate, as I said, it's difficult to know which side of the line between baiting and coding it is, just on the fact that we just don't know enough. We don't have any sort of knowledge from the creators, and it's a original 12 episode series that aired last season. There isn't even any sort of supplemental material. What I will say is that there was a piece of fan art drawn by one of the animators after the finale with both Reki and Longa dressed as grooms, and I believe one of the two was holding them in a bridal carry. I can't 100% remember. I would have to go and check exactly what it is. I'm actually going to try and do that. I know I fucking posted it in the Discord, so I'm just going to go have a search for that very quickly. And we'll get back to you on that.
Another recent anime that had both explicit representation and coding was Great Pretender, which one of the main characters, Laurent, is canonically bisexual, but he also had a lot of homoerotic subtext with the other male lead, Makoto. And it's difficult to say whether that relationship was coded as romantic or if it was just Laurent being flirty to mess with Makoto as he is wont to do. Because Laurent does canonically just like messing with Makoto for shits and giggles.
Laurent is a fucking troll.
He is an absolute troll. He is a wonderful asshole.
So amazing. So he very much falls into the Najimi category of we don't know because he's too much. They're too much of a troll. By the way, this is the this is the skate picture.
We do know that Laurent is canonically bi. There is both text in the series and supplementary material that will say it as much. As much.
No bridal carry, but they're both dressed as grooms. I'm sorry. Not to mention, they're both holding bouquets. Longa's is red, Reki's is blue, and they're holding the other's color that they're represented by. There's also those damn dancing palm trees in the fucking ending.
I'm sorry, what? As someone who has not watched this, could you elaborate on
there
the dancing palm trees?
in the ending, at the start, at the beginning and the end of the ending, there is 2 palm trees basically bouncing. One is outlined in red and the other is outlined in blue. Again, signifying Longa being the blue because he's got blue hair, Reki has red hair. It's not hard to figure out. Like, this is why I lean more towards coding than bait for skate. Like this,
bait.
Yeah, there's just so much that seems to like lean towards that.
A recent-ish series I would like to bring up that could lead to some discussion, maybe. Not that recent. It's Jesus Christ, 6 years old by now. Would be Euphonium.
Oh shit! Yeah, Euphonium.
Because
I'm
it's
not
probably bait.
It, but yeah, I've heard a lot of
Unfortunately, probably bait. I've only seen the anime, but from what I hear, in the light novels, the gay stuff is a lot less apparent.
Yeah, I hear that the anime laid up the lesbian subtext over the
Sorry.
The anime...
I've just gone on the homoerotic subtext TV tropes page, and Sound Euphonium has its own fucking page.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's they put a lot of shit in there, but in the first season. But in season 2, one of the characters that gets teased, baited, call it what you will. And actually, by the end of season 1, that's just that's her story arc in the novels. Apparently, she's actually in love with their teacher conductor, which is a whole different can of worms.
Oh god,
which is like yikes. But the thing is, like, that's a guy, so they lead into all this lesbian subtext, fully knowing that it's not in the original material, and that in season 2 they kind of basically abandoned it. So that's why I would say it's bait.
Oh, okay. What you guys remember that series about the one literature club?
Maidens.
With the one girl.
Maidens.
Huh?
Maidens.
Yes, that one.
The one with the 2 pedophiles that don't, one pedophile and one asshole who acts like a pedophile for most of the show. Neither of whom get punished.
Great. Isn't anime amazing?
So what were you going to say, Fuzzy?
Well, there was that is a very difficult series to talk about for a lot of reasons, and I made my opinions on that known, but remember that whole part of one of the characters' entire story arc was her realizing she's into girls?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How would you guys classify that?
That's not coding or baiting. That's actual text.
Well,
it's more the relationship between her
yes.
and what's her name. Give me a second, and I'll get my write-up of it up, and I'll be able to remember names then. Or is it? It's underfinished.
Or you can just look it up.
Between Sugawara and Momo. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, Momo is actually a lesbian. Sugawara is, it's unclear what her relationship with Momo is.
I would argue that, yeah, it's probably not baiting or coding, in that it's more... There's never, I don't feel like there's ever any indication that Sugawara feels like similar towards Momo. I don't feel like that would be queer baiting rather than really.
I feel like in this case it's a matter of subtext. Like, Momo is textually gay. That is not really up for debate. The question is if Nina is
and rather the question is, because that is no, I would more say, is that a malicious case of kind of tossing the canonically gay character aside.
Not necessarily. Because the thing is, a lot of... So if it's only the gay character who doesn't end up in a relationship at the end of a series, and all the straight characters get hooked up, that is a malicious thing. But of the 5 main leads, only 2 of them actually end the series in a relationship. The other 3 do not.
I'm just trying to remember the fucking ending. It's been...
Kazusa and Rika both get boyfriends.
I mean,
but the other 3 don't have
obviously Sonozaki and Kazusa end up in relationships, but I'm just trying to remember what the...
Wait, there's 3 others?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aren't there just 4 of them?
Hongo.
Kazusa...
There's 5 of them.
I don't blame you for trying to forget Hongo. Her storyline was awful.
Yeah.
Because it was based around her fucking seducing her teacher, who kept leading her on for some reason.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Oh,
yeah.
God, right.
And while it is made like very clear that he is not a pedophile, he is a smug, condescending asshole who manipulates Hongo for most of the show.
But
I
feel
forgot
bad about
that.
it at the end.
I don't care.
I know.
At all.
I know. I am mostly being
All I'm
facetious.
going to say about that series is I called it. You guys didn't believe me when I knifed it every week.
Because you knifed half the shows on our list, regardless.
And most of them turned out pretty bad at the end.
That was because we didn't get to choose what we wanted to watch. A lot more stuff would have survived if we actually got to choose what we wanted to watch.
Yeah. That kind of would defeat the purpose of an FMK.
I don't fucking care. FMK was kind of a dumb idea. Certainly the way we did it.
Oh, absolutely.
But anyway, we got rather off topic there and was more, shitting on old maidens. Trying to think of any others that might apply.
What was it?
Another one that might be kind of fun. Far out of the realm of any form of subtext for gay, but maybe trans would be Utena.
Yeah, Utena.
Oh God, Utena,
because that has that whole.
We do not have enough time to talk about Utena. I don't think.
I just want to say one thing real quick, because I believe we had this talk recently, and I think this is a good place to bring it up. On the question of her gender queerness, because that's actually a good example. I should have said this when we started, because that's a good example of something I said then. On the topic of her being any form of gender non-conforming, I think that is one of those where you can't really say she is, because her quote-unquote male-coded behavior is more folded into the lesbian subtext, because it was made when it was made, and they wanted to hint at her and Anthe being in a relationship, and so one of them has to be the guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Utena was very butch-coded.
Yeah, exactly. And but I think that the point was not to code her butch, it was just kind of to fill out all the checkboxes on the relationship code they wanted to put in there. And one of them had to be the guy, and she was gonna fight anyway, so fuck it, just dress her in a male uniform.
Oh, it's a horrible reason.
Salmon sandwich.
I mean, there's so much shit in Utena that is.
Utena needs its own episode if we're gonna talk about it.
I mean, it's Magical Girl Evangelion for a reason.
Oh, I've just remembered
recent anime that do have coding, though, would be a couple from the spring of last year, about a year ago. Apari Ranman and Princess Connect Redive.
I was just about to mention Ranman, and I was just actually about to look up the director to see if he'd worked on anything vaguely gay.
But Apari Ranman has, like, a lot of queer-coded subtext between its two leads, Apare and Kosame.
Yeah, no, it is very, very queer-coded.
But yes, with that, I believe we're.
We still have time to discuss a little bit of it.
Well, we have been going for 2 hours.
True.
So, unless you guys want to go deeper into some specific examples,
I think I've got my answer whether Apare Ranman is baiting or coding, because there are in the mal comments for the director. There are comments talking about people talking about a gay character in a work from 2016 that he made. I don't know exactly which one. I would have to.
There you go.
Have to look that one up, but I think that's a fairly definitive lean towards.
Yeah, usually if an
it's
author
probably intentional coding.
Has done it once, they'll do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, 100%. But Princess Connect, I think, goes into coding verging on text. What with the relationship between Pecorine and Carol being considering that the former outright tells the latter that she loves her and hugs her at the end of the first season,
like
which
friends
is
do.
Yes, no, they're just very close friends who love each other.
At the very least, heavy coding. But we could dig through. We could just go digging through Mal and find endless examples.
I could just go through my list and talk about everything, but at some point it's not really productive anymore, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we could be at this all day, honestly.
Yeah,
just tossing out example after example after example. Yeah. But at the end of the day, queerbaiting is and queer coding are pretty different in how they are applied and in what they look like if you look beyond the surface.
Oh, we didn't mention one of the examples given on the Tumblr post for queer coding, which was no, Gravity Falls. Team Wolf was queerbaiting.
Yeah.
Gravity Falls was queer coding in that it had the two Sheriff
cops, right?
Sheriff Blobs and Deputy Derland hold hands, showing genuine affection for each other, but weren't allowed to confirm it until Alex Hirsch basically. I think this was after he left Disney and did not fear their retribution anymore. Confirmed that yes, they were meant to be gay, and he wasn't allowed to confirm it.
I mean, if we're gonna talk about like
the mouse
on a similar note, camp.
Kind of... Oh, if you want to talk Rooster Teeth stuff, we also have Red vs. Blue and Ruby are also examples that have examples to discuss. Red vs. Blue and Griffin Simmons and their constant bickering.
What's the example in Camp or examples?
Well, in terms of coding, there's how would you classify the green-haired girl whose name I don't remember any of their names?
Nikki.
Green-haired girl and the child of the FBI agents.
Erid. Yeah, no, I can definitely see the coding there. I can definitely see the coding.
It's one-sided, yes, but like
I mean I can see the coding, but there's also an element of just hero worship from a younger kid to an older kid. Like again, it's something that I can definitely see. Like that's one we haven't mentioned. Maki and Nobara from Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yeah, no.
Yes.
There is some coding in that relationship for sure.
There's definitely some coding there. Again, it's not
the
one that
is the author is not planning on writing any romance into the series proper.
Again, I respect them for that.
Yeah. The closest we got was the stuff with Miwa, and the author said that she's the only character he could see having a romantic relationship of the cast he has.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
poor Miwa.
I believe that train has sailed.
Let's not go any further into that.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about it later. But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, for an example of something that isn't coding but is just slow burn romantic subtext that hasn't come to fruition quite yet, you have Ruby, which has two of the main four characters have basically a slow burn romantic relationship that is getting less and less subtle with each passing season in Blake and Yang, which is become quite popular.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also, for a similar ship that you are more familiar with, Mill and Fuzzy, there's the whole, there's the Owl House.
Mm.
And
I mean, that's not even coding anymore.
Oh no, it's something I'm trying to say is distinct from coding in that it's not coding, it is subtext for a slow burn romance.
Yeah. I wouldn't even call it slow burn at this stage.
Fair enough.
I'm expecting them to get together before the season is out.
That would not surprise me. But yeah, there is a distinction between coding and like romantic subtext that is going to be resolved within the meat of a show.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the difference between that is that the subtext or the romantic subtext between two characters to not be coding sort of has to be resolved and become an actual queer relationship.
I mean, that's kind of what I was saying.
Yeah,
it's kind of what I was saying earlier with like many of the shows we were talking about throughout this whole thing were just shows that couldn't really do that because then that show just wouldn't have aired.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can't just do that. Now you can't just put gay relationships in whatever you're making. Nobody cares. Like, the people who care are exactly the right people who will get angry about that. Nobody gives a shit about them. But
I was going to take issue with your nobody cares about gay relationships anymore because unfortunately they do.
Yeah, but again, fuck those people.
Yeah, fuck those people, Royal.
And that's why the whole baiting and coding thing is starting to take a backseat because they are no longer really doing that. If they want to do that, they just put the relationship in there.
That is most prevalent in media from places and cultures where it's... Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You say that, and then Supernatural, not 2 years ago, pulled their bullshit. Last year pulled their fucking bullshit.
As I said, that stuff will not go away for a long time, but it is starting to take a backseat because, again, if you want queer representation in your show, let's say it's much less likely that the executives are going to say, no, don't do that. And that's usually the source for the coding.
I'm still never not going to laugh at this whole Supernatural debacle.
I mean, what I read about it was terrifying and stupid, and it was so hilarious.
But yeah, hooray for society moving as fast as a especially geriatric tortoise.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of funny to me. Back in 2014, when Legend of Korra ended, and that was the moment, right?
Yeah,
everyone's like, "This is huge."
Korra walked so Steven Universe could run, so She-Ra could sprint.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like when Korra happened, everyone's like, "Oh, this is the moment. This is huge," and all the weeps were like, "No, anime has done this for years," and now we've reached the point where. In terms of representation and moving beyond coding, Western animation is so much further than anime overall.
Yep.
And that's funny to me.
I mean,
but that's the thing with the more conservative society.
Yeah, it feels like anime and manga sort of been taking, tippy toe steps towards progressive media, whereas Western animation just took fucking giant leaps.
Yeah, exactly. That's
just take one look at Steven Universe and and like flaws it may have, it did wonders for representation in Western animation. Like
I mean, to the point where essentially when She-Ra happened, nobody really bat an eye. Just kind of happened.
Yeah, no, people were like, "Oh, so this is actually gay." Okay then.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Adventure Time as well. I believe that had a
yes, Adventure Time. That was another big one.
Yeah, no.
And I think luckily that's where we're going. Where you just don't need to hide your gaze anymore. We can just put it in the story as a thing.
I mean, we're not quite at the don't have to hide our gaze bit. They like to trot them out for us.
We probably won't be there for 10 years or something, but we're getting there.
We're getting there, but they still do like to trot out the gay character for a single scene that can easily be cut so that they can sell it in less progressive countries.
Yeah, no, as I said, I'm saying this shit is not going away for a bit, but we're moving, and we're moving in a good direction.
Eventually, we'll get to a point where Disney's 21st canon gay character will actually be like a major character in a storyline.
Disney's
the 21st gay canon gay character.
Oh my god, this. I don't even know what they're doing anymore, man. This is so sad.
To be fair, at least Loki is allowed to be canonically bi now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was done very well because it basically wasn't really addressed at all. It was just a thing.
It wasn't shoved in your face. Yeah, that's nice.
It was just. Yeah, that was.
Yes, I believe we've more or less exhausted the topic without going nitty gritty into more specific examples. So thank you for joining us, everyone.
Yep. Thanks for hanging out.
And we will see you next time.
See you tomorrow for D&D.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good night.